This episode of Shadiversity is brought to you and sponsored by Sandy Peterson's Cthulhu Mythos, a 5th edition tabletop role-playing game, but not just any tabletop role-playing game. It is the most comprehensive guide to the Cthulhu Mythos ever written for 5th edition role-playing. As you would expect, being written by Sandy Peterson himself, the undisputed authority on the Cthulhu Mythos. You know, just that guy who wrote the groundbreaking Call of Cthulhu role-playing game? And now he brings that expertise to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons with over 400 pages of phenomenal content. Please be aware that Sandy Peterson's 5th edition Cthulhu Mythos may contain traces of face tentacles! You've been warned. Starting off, it's available through Kickstarter beginning on October 1st to October 22nd and shipping shortly after with availability continuing from there on. And if that wasn't good enough, there are also phenomenal Cthulhu Mythos-based miniatures available. So a big thank you to Peterson Games for supporting this video and Shadiversity, and if you'd like to get your hands on this comprehensive sourcebook, there is a link in the description below.
Shadiversity.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and welcome back to Fantasy Rearmed. And this Fantasy Rearmed episode is a little bit different, because generally I only take a look at realistic applications of weapons and even armor and stuff to classic fantasy creatures and the best type of weapons and armor to fight those fantasy creatures, but I'm expanding the breadth of Fantasy Rearmed to start to look at the general tropes of the fantasy genre, and perhaps even other things as well, to make them better, okay? Because when something is actually, doesn't make sense, stuff where when you look at it with a critical eye, it ruins immersion, okay? It doesn't make it nearly as good as what it can be. And so in this episode, the one that we're going to be starting with this, broader look, is dungeons, okay? One of the classic staples in many fantasies. So much so that one of the large, great properties of fantasy has dungeons as an element of their title. Yeah, I'm talking about Dungeons & Dragons. Now this is really interesting because the title Dungeons & Dragons is trying to imply all the fun fantasy elements, things that you might come across in this, and you're going to be fighting dragons and exploring dungeons and stuff. Of course, they probably picked dungeons because of literation, D and D, D for dragons, D for dungeons. Dungeons & Dragons sounds a bit snappy and they decided to pick that. But from an objective standpoint, dungeons are not actually hugely prominent. Well, it's funny. It depends on how you roleplay, okay? Because for myself, I've always seen the inconsistent stupidity of the employment or the way dungeons are employed in so much fantasy and stuff like that. Just pausing here because I can be misunderstood in what I just said, so let me clarify. My criticism here is about the way dungeons are employed, not the fact that dungeons or the concept of running through some type of enemy's base is illogical, because that latter part obviously makes sense. If you have a bad guy, he is obviously going to have a base of some type, and then if you want to attack it, you have kind of a dungeon-esque scenario then. My criticism here is the way in which they are employed, more specifically, the way they are mostly designed in all of fantasy, which I will get to and explain a bit later. Let's look at the purposes of dungeons, both from a historical perspective and the purpose they are supposed to fulfill in classic fantasy. So from a realistic historical perspective, you kind of know what they're a prison, okay? Generally a dungeon is a prison in the underground layers of something. Generally a castle, doesn't have to be a castle. If it's underground and it's a prison, you would call it a dungeon, which is a bastardization of the word donjon. Donjon technically translating to great tower, the great tower of a castle. Why? Because originally the most secure place that you could imprison someone in a castle was in the highest room of that castle. Logic being, to escape from it, you have to go through more of the castle than anywhere else in the castle to try and get out of the castle. So that was the secure place. Throw them in the donjon. The donjon, the word started to become synonymous with the concept of prison, and when that location switched to something even more secure, underground, locked away in the darkness, where do we throw this person? Well, we throw him in the donjon, dungeon! Now we have dungeons. Do they serve that role in fantasy? Well, I'm sure, if you threw someone in a prison that was underground, anyone would call that a dungeon, but the classic fantasy dungeon isn't actually that. It is more generally some type of either vault to store treasures, in which whoever created this thing loads it up with traps and obstacles, puzzles, and monsters to protect that treasure, or it's the base, the home of some nefarious type of villain or wizard or something like that. Admittedly, there are other kind of things in fantasy that are not dungeons per se, but very much fill this exact same role, whether it's the hiding place for a treasure or the base of some villain or something like that, and this could be a dragon's cave or a castle fortress where the bad guy is located as well. Those generally function in the same role of the classic underground fantasy dungeon, but those other examples make a little bit more sense than the underground dungeon, because the first thing that doesn't make sense about the underground ones per se is, why do they have so many rooms? Like if you were to look at how dungeons are shown in certain role-playing games, whether this is D&D or even video games, where you go underground and it's just room after room of monsters, like Diablo or, the top-down things and that stuff. Yes, of course, gameplay mechanics, I understand this, alright? So video games get a bit more of a pass in this regard, but tabletop role-playing games less so in my opinion. Why is that? Because you can make your role-play session just as enjoyable and satisfying without this really unrealistic, strange kind of setup where you have room, monster, doors to go through, traps, big bad guy, fight, win. So let me elaborate on this a little bit more, because there are many dungeon designs which are basically a logical internal layout of some type of structure, but the most classic type of dungeon layout is one in which most rooms, whether it's a clump of rooms or a single room, are accessed by a clump of rooms or a single room before it, to force the adventurers to pass through as many obstacles as possible before they get to the final location. It's common to find shortcuts and intersections between other rooms to find different ways to get to a different location, but the standard most common feature is rooms that are linked from one another, and this is very illogical design. I get it that this is so obviously a gameplay mechanic, and that's my pet peeve with it. It is so obviously a gameplay mechanic and would never actually exist in the real world, and therefore is so immersion breaking for me. It's impossible for me to see this and not avoid the thought and knowledge that, oh, this is only here because I'm playing a game. I don't want to continually think I'm playing a game. I actually want to be sucked into what I'm doing and pretend I'm really there. Some gameplay mechanics are obviously unavoidable, like the rules that you're using to play the game, but some can be avoided. And my annoyance for this honestly comes from my understanding of architectural design. When you design any type of layout that will have rooms in which you want to get to, you rarely ever have to actually move through another room to get to it. In some cases there are, but that would be considered bad architectural design. More often than not, all the areas in which you want to access in a structure is accessible by a central kind of pathway, whether that be through a hallway, an entry hall, or a central kind of hub. Because what you don't want in your building is to have to go through every single room to get to the room that you want to do, especially if you have people in those rooms. They're sitting there doing their own thing and then suddenly they're interrupted by someone, oh, I'm just passing through to get to the other room. Now you might say, Shad, that doesn't apply because a dungeon is meant to protect something and you want as many obstacles for the people to get through to get to that very thing. But then you're creating obstacles for the person who actually owns that thing for them to pass through to get to. If this was the base of some particularly powerful whatever, okay, overlord, Sauron-esque kind of figure, or a wizard, a magician, stuff like that, what reason would they have to want to live underground, hidden behind a really long line of monsters and traps and stuff like that? And unless they have some type of magical teleport that takes them right in the middle, but that's the problem, okay? As soon as you put in a back door to get to your precious treasures and everything like that, you've created a back door for the adventurers. And so if I was an adventurer and I knew that there is some great treasure behind all these obstacles and stuff like that, but it's also the home of someone who lives, that the person who lives there must have an easier way to access that loot and stuff like that, rather than going through things like, disarm this trap, no, ogre thing, don't attack me, I'm your lord, get out of the way, thanks, door, okay, another door, trap, better disarm that, another door, and walk through a really long way to get to, I'm back home now, here we are. That's very, very inconvenient. One of the things that you like about having homes is convenience. So if I was playing an adventure with any level of brains, I would be, expecting that character to have the thought, well, instead of going through all this crap to get through this treasure, I might just try and track down whoever owns it and follow them and see how they get inside. This actually happens a lot in fantasy role-playing video games, particularly Skyrim, you will notice this, where you've just gone through this big dungeon run, and it could have been in the style of a crypt or a cave or whatever, and you've gone through the monsters and you found the big boss and you fought the big boss, and then from the room where you fought the boss or the treasury room or whatever, you find a secret passageway that leads you directly to the entrance, skipping all the junk that you just had to fight through. And every time that happens, I always have the thought of, gee, it would have been so much more convenient if I just went through the secret entrance, or if I had the freedom to try and find it and skip all the junk that I just had to risk my character's life for. The other profoundly illogical thing about dungeons is that they're structured in a very complementary way to help the adventurers achieve what they want. What do I mean by this? It's a lot easier to fight 1 to 3 monsters at a time instead of 10 to 20 monsters in one huge hit. Yet that is exactly how most dungeons are designed. They are made to spread out the defensive resources of any type of dungeon that are meant to protect a certain whatever, so the adventurers can just fight past them bit by bit by bit. But honestly, if someone truly was trying to protect something, one of the most efficient ways to do it would be to put it behind some type of really secure vault and then have one room where all the defensive resources and guards, monsters, are placed. If you've played tabletop pen and paper role-playing games, think of a classic dungeon adventure that you have gone on, and then think of all the monsters that you had to fight through and ask yourself, could you as adventurers been able to defeat all those monsters if you encountered them in one encounter, in one single room, including all the traps? Probably not. You would get overwhelmed and be totally destroyed. It's a fairly obvious thing, so why didn't any of these evil overlords think of it? They are literally trying to protect their treasures in such a way to help the adventurers find it. With a little bit of difficulty and obstacles granted, but never enough to overwhelm them instantly. Again, I know it's a gameplay mechanic, but it doesn't make sense in the real world. So if you want to make something realistic, this is one of the clear and obvious tactics that someone would do if they were trying to protect something. Put everything in front of the front door of the thing you're trying to protect. Put all your defenses into one location so it forces the adventurers to bottleneck themselves trying to get to the treasure and then have to face everything in one hit. So there are ways to make a structure building have the kind of same, gameplay effect as a dungeon, and I think one of the best ones would be a great large citadel. It wouldn't necessarily be a labyrinth inside. If you're looking at how really large castles are made and stuff like that, people don't actually want other people to get lost inside. Their layouts are very functional, straightforward, and easy to understand. In fact, hiding some type of important treasure inside a maze and stuff like that, the only reason you would really do that is if you actually wanted someone to get it, okay? You're setting it up as a reward for people overcoming those very obstacles that you put in place, which doesn't really serve the purpose of protecting said treasure. You're just enabling someone worthy to be able to get it. Now, for an evil overlord and stuff like that, I don't really see why they would be so accommodating for things that they particularly value. And the other thing about all this is that making something underground requires a lot more work than if you were to build it above ground. So why would you make it underground? Okay, for the things that we actually do put underground, they are not necessarily placed underground for the sake of being underground. They're generally because they serve as the undercroft foundation, level for something above it, okay? So if we're looking at a dungeon, well, the dungeon is there because of the foundation stones and stuff needed to be dug deep into the ground, and now we're already underground, we'll put a vaulted ceiling over top of it. Well, it's pretty dark here, it's a good place to throw people in who we don't like. It's a dungeon now, and it only is as big as it needed to be, like extending it really, really large. The other thing is the idea of crypts. And so we do like to bury people underground, us humans. That seems to be fairly consistent. And the more wealthy, the more elaborate the underground tomb. I mean, even those terracotta, soldiers, whatever, that are buried in China, that was a pretty large underground crypt. And for that sense, okay, maybe that could be kind of fantasy, a more logical fantasy dungeon where it was fairly well known where the great noble king was buried. Maybe not necessarily noble king, maybe evil king, okay? And he wanted to take all his goodies with him into the afterlife, and so he put heaps of traps all around and even undead guards and stuff protecting all the treasure. So maybe that is one of the few examples where the fantasy dungeon that we see in role-playing games and stuff like that could actually make logical sense if you brought that fantasy into a realistic, objective analysis. So there are kind of narrow examples in which the fantasy dungeon, where you go underground, monster traps, and all that stuff, can work logically. But for the most part, and for the most ways in which they are used in, role-playing games, stuff like that, and video games, They're just completely stupid. One of my favourite role-playing sessions that I generally use in place of the cliche dungeon run and stuff like that I've used multiple times and for great effect, is just that an enemy has taken over a castle, or an enemy has a castle and stuff like that, and the adventurers need to go in to either rescue someone, find something, or even open up the doors for the, larger army to go in and stuff like that. So there's multiple different scenarios, and then just giving it over to the players. What are you going to do to try and fix this? And letting them come up with ideas or plans, and then thinking about how their plans would work logically and what would be logically in place in the castle. It's a lot of fun though, right? They come up against multiple obstacles, and because I know general castle layout and design and stuff like that, I know the problems that they face when trying to sort all this stuff, either to sneak in, stuff like that. In fact, they did find the sally port to some of these castles, stuff like that, and trying to sneak in and kill the guards and all that other. Lot of fun, all right? And it was also logically consistent, made sense for a medieval setting and stuff like that. And I've rarely ever, except for my very early days in role-playing, used the cliche fantasy dungeon, because you can use something else so much cooler, so much more realistic. It gives the players more freedom, and they also feel more empowered instead of being funneled into this very strict kind of path where you have to go through these rooms and have to fight these monsters and you have to deal with these traps. They now have the freedom to approach this puzzle in any way that they can think of. That type of freedom is really engaging for a player, and it's empowering as well, because they're not trying to find the solutions that you have put in place based on your own arbitrary standards, stuff like that. They're coming up with their own solutions and applying it to your own logic as a game master or whatever, and also the rolls of the dice and stuff. Anyway, so that's what I do, and I wanted to share it with you. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the classic fantasy dungeons. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed, and of course, I hope to see you again. So until that time, farewell.